been traveling across China for the last 2 months, and there's a couple of things we wish we knew. So here's our list of 14 things we wish we knew before traveling to China in 2025. A lot of people still think of China as a developing country. I know for me personally, I was very surprised at how developed the cities are, and I think that's because, unfortunately, the media misrepresents China in a negative light. I thought the country would be a lot more like Vietnam in terms of small villages and rural landscapes. Whenever we tell our friends and family back home what we're experiencing in China, they always seem shocked and surprised. I think a lot of us coming from the West still envision China from the 80s, and the reality is it's just not like that anymore. This was a huge thing that took us by surprise when we first visited, and it's something that I think a lot of Westerners might also not realize.
Yeah, honestly, the cities in China were probably some of the most modern cities we have ever experienced. So we knew China was a large country, but we didn't know that it was actually larger than the United States by landmass. We also couldn't comprehend how truly massive the cities themselves would be. They were so spread out, and they ranged from millions to tens of millions of people in some of the larger ones. Before we started traveling, we were living in a town of 1,000 yearly residents in Alaska, and you can imagine what a shock it was to show up to somewhere like Beijing or Shanghai with well over 20 million people. This made each city almost feel like a new country in its own way. For instance, Shanghai feels very modern and very chic and upmarket. Beijing feels a little bit more traditional and down to earth. And then you got cities like Guangzhou that almost felt like Southeast Asia. And this was all a stark contrast to cities in the western part of the country like Chengdu and Chongqing.
This makes sense when you consider how spread apart the cities are. The food, the culture, the architecture, everything shifts as you travel hundreds of miles in mere hours on the high-speed train, which is something that always blew our minds. Getting around China is super easy and affordable, and that's because there are a ton of buses, high-speed trains, and sleeper trains to get around the country. The high-speed trains are the most expensive and efficient option, but they do have 3 classes of trains that you can take if you're on a budget and still in a hurry. If you're on a backpacker budget and don't have a strict timeline, buses and sleeper trains are definitely the way to go. They are more cost-effective, however they do take a much longer time. The plus side of taking a sleeper train is you do save money on accommodation, but for us, it's not worth the rough night of sleep to save a little bit of money, so we always opted for the high-speed trains.
We've done our fair share of sleeper transportation before.
Yeah. Like I said before, there are 3 classes for the high-speed train. There is second class, first class, and business class. The thing that is different in China is first class is actually worse than business class, whereas in the States, it's the opposite, typically. We rode every class of train and found that second class was the best for saving money, whereas business class is the best if you can splurge for it. Of course. To us, first class didn't have enough amenities to justify the cost, so we would skip that next time. I will say, the cost of the trains initially surprised us, but when you consider how far you're going and the amount of time that you're saving by not having to check a flight and go through security and all of this stuff, I do think that it is worth the cost. The important thing to remember is that despite China's size, it is a very easy country to travel in.
Yeah, it's really nice to be able to go hundreds of kilometers in just mere hours, and you don't have to deal with the hassle of baggage claim or checking in or anything like that. We booked all of our train journeys and accommodations for this entire trip in China using trip.com. It's a site we had never used before, but honestly, we can't say enough good things about it. We'll leave a link to it in the description down below so you can check it out when you're booking your travel plans in China. Speaking of booking things, in China, you're gonna need your passport a lot. It's not really a big deal for us because we've been traveling for the past 3 years and we're kind of used to carrying them around. But something you might not expect from other countries is when you're traveling in China, how often you'll actually use your passport. You'll need your passport to buy SIM cards, to book tickets, to get into some attractions, even to check into your hotels. Places like the train station, the Great Wall of China, the Forbidden City in Beijing, all use your passport instead of a physical ticket. So it's just something to keep in mind. You don't just need it when you're booking, you'll actually need it to enter the grounds or the train station.
We think you should always carry your passport with you when traveling, since it's actually legal not to in a lot of countries. So just bring your passport with you, especially in China, and you're gonna save yourself a lot of headaches. Out of every country that we've been to, I think it's safe to say that China speaks the least amount of English. Sometimes communication can be a little bit difficult in China if you don't speak Mandarin and if the locals don't speak English. However, I will say that the younger crowd is definitely very comfortable using the translators, while the older older generation isn't quite as comfortable using the translators, they were still very friendly and willing to help us out whenever we needed anything, so don't worry about the communication barrier too much. Getting around in public transportation is super easy because every sign will have at least an English translation for you, so you're not gonna get lost taking the bus, the subway, the high-speed train, anything like that. I think a lot of the times for us personally, the most difficult and frustrating moments we had in China was when we were hangry and we were at a restaurant that didn't have pictures and we weren't able to translate the menu because Apple Translate wasn't working properly or something, so.
Yeah, one of the things to be aware of is Google Translate doesn't work in China, and Apple Translate works pretty well sometimes. And like Ashley said, that can be frustrating when you are just so hungry and you don't know where to go, and you find a place and they've got just a menu and there's no English, no pictures, you have no idea what you're ordering.
Yeah, trust us, you do not want to be hangry and not able to translate the menu. It's no fun for anyone.
The good news is if you're feeling stuck and having trouble translating things, just ask for help. Usually the restaurant and shop owners are so friendly and so willing to help. And honestly, we didn't have one thing that wasn't good in China. So kind of just trust your gut and follow your nose. Speaking of Google Translate, Google Maps also doesn't work in China. Apple Maps does a really good job of getting you where you need to be if you know where you're going. But it doesn't work really well like a search engine. So if you're used to pulling up Google Maps and being like restaurants near me, Apple Maps isn't really gonna take care of you. China does have an app called Dianping that does a really good job of finding restaurants, shops, bars, nightlife, all kinds of things. However, it's all in Chinese, so you're gonna have to do a lot of screenshotting and translating in Apple Translate and hope that Apple Translate's translations are really good. It sounds like a lot more of a headache than it actually is, but it's definitely something to be aware of.
Like other countries we visited in Asia, such as Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, they all drive on the right-hand side, same as China, same as the United States. This was pretty normal for us coming from the States, but the one thing that I do want to mention is that if you are from a country that drives on the left-hand side, be really careful when crossing the street. They have a ton of electric vehicles in China, I think more than anywhere we've ever been. And so you'll have a full-sized, fully loaded electric bus creep up behind you. And if you don't look the right way, there's a chance that you might get squished.
Like, I didn't even hear this guy coming.
So just be really careful, look both ways when crossing the road, especially if you come from a country that drives on the left-hand side, because China does not.
So when we were planning our trip to China, we weren't really sure if we were gonna go to all these big tourist attractions because we just, I don't know, sometimes they feel like they might be overhyped. That's not the case. The Great Wall of China is hands down one of the biggest tourist attractions in the entire country and is one of the best things we've done in all of our travels. While we took the budget option by taking buses to the Mutianyu section of the Great Wall, there's all kinds of experiences on trip.com if you're looking to splurge and want more of a seamless experience. When you're there, definitely pay the extra for the cable car up and the toboggan ride down. I feel like they made that experience just all the more memorable. Just like the Great Wall of China, there are a ton of major tourist attractions that are all worth seeing. We unfortunately didn't get to see quite as many as we'd like to due to the weather being so cold and just underestimating how massive the cities were.
Our advice would be to pick 1 to 2 destinations that you know you have to visit, like the Great Wall, and just try to remember that your first trip to China is likely not going to be your last trip to China.
True story.
Cash is kind of irrelevant in China, and that is definitely not something that we were expecting. You'll use Alipay and WeChat for basically everything, and I can actually only think of maybe 2 experiences where our WeChat and our Alipay wouldn't work, and that was simply because the vendor was usually a small street vendor and they didn't have international card acceptance set up. So grab some cash out of the ATM, just a little bit to get by, but don't expect to have to use it more than like a handful of times.
Yeah, we took out 1,000 RMB when we first arrived in China and ran into the issue Ashley was talking about, and I think when we left China we had 750 RMB still. Also, don't worry about your phone dying, that was a big concern of mine, but all over China they have these charging bank power stations where you just scan a QR code with your Alipay or WeChat, pop out a little like portable charging bank, and then return it at any location around the city because they're everywhere.
Yeah, that was like one of the coolest things we saw. We actually have a portable charger, so we didn't need them.
Yeah.
But like, I've never seen that in any other country that we've been to, and that would have been so helpful.
Yeah, every like hotel lobby, Lawson's, gas stations,
everywhere, yeah.
Little aunties' shops of everything they sold. There was multiple little chargers, and you just scan it, pull one out. It's honestly so smart.
I guess it makes sense, like in a country that you have to have your phone to pay for everything, you want to make sure that you have phone chargers, but
They've got you.
they did it.
Another quick tip is to just make sure you set up Alipay and WeChat before you arrive in China. It doesn't take a lot of time, and having it set up will just ensure a seamless transition into the country. Out of our whole trip in China, I think one of the things that we both loved the most was the food.
Hands down. Maybe too much.
Honestly, we didn't know a whole lot about real Chinese food. We only knew what we'd had in Chinese restaurants back home, and we weren't sure what to expect. We honestly weren't sure if we were gonna like it. We were a little nervous as to what we were gonna eat. Were we just gonna eat fried rice and noodles the whole time? Our minds were blown and our palates expanded. Some of our favorite experiences the entire trip were finding all kinds of new favorites and just trying food we had never even heard of before. We even got to go to the largest hot pot restaurant in the world, and if you're interested in seeing that video, you can check out our second channel. It's called Mike and Ashley Vlogs. Way more low-key, chill, just like hanging out with us, and we put out videos there every once in a while.
Ooh, another experience that I really loved was our dim sum in Guangzhou.
That was amazing. That place was so good.
It was like so fancy and delicious, and it was so amazing.
Yeah. What was it called? Tao Tao Ju?
Tao Tao Ju, yeah, that was a really, really good experience.
Anytime we ate dumplings was good.
Yeah.
We love dumplings.
There was so much good food. We have videos for all of this stuff that we're referencing, so if you haven't already checked that out, we'll go ahead and leave it linked here and then also below. So
yeah, and we'll leave the playlist linked at the end of this video, so if you watch to the end, click that and you can follow our entire journey through China. Nanjing impressions. That was one of the best dining experiences ever, and it was in our last city in China, and it made me very sad. We just got done editing that video, and just reliving it was so good.
Yeah, I definitely cried a lot in that video. Not because the food was so good, it was very, very good though. I think Nanjing had some of the best food that we had in China, and that's like a really high accolade because like Mike said, there's not really a bad meal that you're gonna find there. But yeah, Nanjing Impressions was amazing. It was so good. It was so good and so cheap. I think we paid under $30 for like
a huge spread of food.
Yeah, honestly, I had no idea that I was gonna love Chinese food quite as much as I did. We definitely gained a lot of weight, but I think it was worth it. Also, don't be afraid to try the street food. It's not as common as in Southeast Asia, but it does still exist and you're gonna be totally fine. Use common sense, don't go to places that have flies flying around, go places that are busy, the turnover is quick, and you'll have no problem. We didn't get food poisoning the entire 2 months that we were in China, and I think that's rare for us going to a new country. I think we've gotten food poisoning in almost every country we've been to, so that says a lot. China is really, really clean. They have high hygiene standards, and I just can't rave enough about the street food, so definitely try it out.
If you plan on using apps that you're familiar with, like YouTube, Google, Instagram, Facebook, anything like that, you're gonna wanna have a VPN. We actually suggest having multiple VPNs because region to region or day to day, sometimes the VPNs can be restricted or not work quite as well. During our trip to China, we used multiples. We used ExpressVPN, Molvad, Surfshark VPN, NordVPN. Just a whole host of them over the course of the time we were there, and it worked fine. If one didn't work, we'd switch to another and it would work, and we were good to go.
We do have affiliate links to all of the VPN companies in the description below, except for Molvad. They actually don't have an affiliate program because I think they want like word of mouth referrals.
Yeah, they want real user experience. They don't want you to be sold a VPN by someone who's being paid, which I think is pretty admirable, and I will honestly say that in China, the one that was the most effective was Molvad.
Yeah, so check this out. All of them worked really, really well. Molvad worked the best. China is surprisingly affordable, and we wish somebody had told us this sooner. One of the things that held us back from visiting China for so long is that we thought it was going to be as expensive as other countries in East Asia, but we were actually really pleasantly surprised how affordable it was. Sometimes the cost of getting between cities can be expensive, but once you're actually in the city itself, it's often really, really affordable. Local food is delicious, and the prices range from super cheap to insanely expensive depending on what you're looking for and what your budget is. For us, hotel accommodations average between I think like $35 to $50 per night, which we were really, really surprised at. And the quality is like, we had robots delivering food to our rooms and curtains that would open and close like with the press of a button. Like seriously, the most technologically advanced rooms you could imagine for less than $50 a night, which is unheard of.
Yeah, I think everywhere we stayed at any price point, we never spent over $50, and I think the cheapest we spent was like right around 22, and everywhere we stayed, obviously the quality changes, but some of the nicest places we've stayed, for sure. So we've been to China 2 different times now. The first time was when we flew into Beijing and we were on what was called the 144-hour transit fee visa exemption program. Now that's been changed to 240 hours, so for US citizens you can get 10 days if you're flying from one country into China and then to another country. And I believe the time that you can do this varies based on the country you're from. The second time, however, we knew that 6 days, 10 days just wasn't going to be enough, so we went ahead and applied for the only tourist visa option available to US citizens, which is a 10-year multiple entry tourist visa. I know that for like the UK and Europe and Australia, there's 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, 180-day, 1 year, and 2 year options. But yeah, for us in the US, we get 10 years or 10 days. Those are your 2 options. And honestly, the visa application process was daunting at first, but way more straightforward than we expected it to be.
It's lengthy, but it's relatively easy as long as you check off all the boxes.
Yeah. You just need to make sure you have proof of your accommodation, your travel plans, a basic itinerary, and a flight out of the country. We have been told and read online that this isn't necessary anymore. However, for us at the Visa Application Center in Hanoi, Vietnam, our agent did require us to have this, but she was really chill and let us go write on like a blank piece of paper our basic itinerary out for what we were doing. It's kind of like, we'll arrive this day, we plan on exploring culture and seeing some sights and trying delicious food, we will leave on this day, this is where we're staying, and we just repeated that process for each location we were going. We weren't 100% sure what our travel plans were going to be, but the agent actually assured us that as long as we had them booked and could cancel them, that once we were approved for the visa, we could just cancel them. Once again, we used trip.com for this. We got free cancellation on everything, which allowed us to keep our travel plans flexible once our visa was approved.
Yeah, that was clutch. It would have been stressful if we had had all of our accommodations booked because honestly, like, we ended up staying in places longer than we intended. We left places sooner than we thought we would. And so having that flexibility of being able to cancel without a charge was huge for us and definitely one that we did not take for granted. Or did we take it for granted?
No.
We did not.
We did not take it for granted. We took advantage of it.
We did. If you want to see a full breakdown of how we applied for our Chinese visa application and what the process was like, let us know in the comments and we can do a full video breakdown of kind of what the process looked like. Honestly, we have really loved our time in China and we are super sad to no longer be there. Unfortunately, the length of stay is capped out at 60 days per visit and we reached that maximum. So if you haven't seen our Nanjing video, that was our last video from our time in China, and to say it was an emotional day is an understatement. Lots of really happy memories though. If we can give you any advice, it would be that if you're looking for somewhere off of the tourist trail, or if you're on a bit of a budget, or you just want to go on an epic adventure, definitely consider China. Don't listen to the media, don't listen to your friends and family, go explore it for yourself, and I promise you will not regret it.
Yeah, honestly, China has something for everyone. The affordability is top notch and the people are just so welcoming. That's actually something that we didn't mention before, is how we would be perceived as Americans. If you've been following the news, it's no surprise that our governments aren't the best of friends right now. But every single person we met and interacted with welcomed us, made us feel right at home, and honestly, I think just enjoyed watching us experience their culture.
We hope you found this video helpful in some way. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you did find this video helpful, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out, and it tells the YouTube gods that we're doing the right thing.
I did mention it before, but if you're not familiar, we do have a second channel called Mike and Ashley Vlogs, as opposed to this channel, which is just Mike and Ashley.
Yeah, that channel's a little bit more unedited, unfiltered, and it gives you a little bit more of a behind the scenes kind of get to know us vibe. So if you like us and want to get to know us more, that's a great place to go. It is still a very new channel and we haven't been great about posting, so we are going to get better, but we would love to reach 5,000 subscribers. So if you want to help us reach our goal, go ahead and go over to Mike and Ashley Vlogs, subscribe to the channel, give us a comment, say hi, help us get into the algorithm, and we would appreciate it so much.
That being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and we really hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.